Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and it's time for an end of the year cleanup of my Steam wish list. So, what goes on is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for at least the past year, I have live streamed Hearthstone and talked about video game news. And then, as part of talking about the video game news, I have looked at every single game that has come out on Steam. What that caused to happen was I have a very long wish list slash watch list of games that are on Steam now, that it's now time to come back and see if some of the games have gotten reviews and if they deserve to stay on the wish list or if they should be removed. Particularly since this is the first year I've done this, there's a lot of old games that frankly will never get above my threshold of the number of necessary reviews or above my threshold for the quality of reviews, and so I'm just eliminating those from the wish list and watch list. The point of the wish list is to have a curated experience of games I might want to cover on my YouTube channel, because I air pre-recorded footage covering games on top of live streaming Hearthstone every weekday at the very least, if not every day sometimes, depending on whether or not there's a series that is going particularly long. And it allows people to see what I'm interested in. One of the two ways that people can support my channel is they can friend me on Steam and either gift me a game off my wish list or a game they'd like me to see and cover, or they can just, if they don't want to choose, gift me a gift card on Steam. The other way to support me is just directly through Patreon. Today we'll be going through the bees, and it's going to be a particularly long journey, and we'll probably take some breaks throughout the process. So let's start with the first game. Now you've gotten a little bit of a taste of all the B title games we're going to be looking at. First one we have is Backgammon Blitz. I can tell you immediately the reason why this game is on my wish list is because it's a backgammon game and I want to play a backgammon game. Any board game has to basically be Question versus Tabletop Simulator. I think at the end of the day I'm probably just going to buy Tabletop Simulator and play a lot of board games that way. This particular game is at mixed reviews, so it shouldn't be on the wish list clearly, and unfortunately Steam's recommendation engine is pretty bad, so none of these other games are even close to a backgammon game. So when I come across a game that should be removed, and frankly quite a lot of them are going to get removed, I copy the title and then I come over to my second screen. I have two text files that I won't be showing, but just so you know what I'm doing, that one of the text files, one of the notepad files says remove, the other says top. If I run into a specific game that should be at the top of my list, something that I know I want to play, then that will certainly go there. But for the most part, most of the games on the watch list or wish list are things I have a slight interest in, things that I want to investigate a little bit further, not 100% guarantees of games I absolutely want to play or cover. Next game we have on here is a horror game, and I could do with some more horror games. I play horror games almost exclusively in October for Halloween month, as it is. This is rated very positively. It's a point and click horror game, so I don't see a real reason why it would come off. Right now it's 80% off for $1.79. I should, I guess, mention that I have several plugins installed on Chrome that make it easier to make a decision. So this is I believe Is There Any Deal plugin that if I was to click this, information, historical low price, you can see what has been the lowest price of this game since it was released in March 9th, 2017. We're not going to do too much of that. We're not going to use most of these plugins. But we do want to keep an eye out for some red flags to make sure we didn't get a troll game. Games that tend to be troll games are in bundles with large amounts of other games. This one's a little bit weird because it's in the Poland bundle, but that doesn't scare me away. One red flag is if you have something that is in English, or if something is not in English, that's a definite red flag and it needs to be removed because I don't speak or read any other languages. But if you run into something that's English and simplified Chinese, there's a higher chance of it being a troll game, I've noticed. If you find something that's English and Russian, there's a higher chance of it being a troll game. If you run into something that has 100 achievements or close to 100 achievements, there's a chance of it being an achievement game, which is usually a troll game. Here we have another plugin that I won't be using too much, from Steam Charts, that just tells how many people are playing now, how many people are playing at a peak, at an all-time peak. Most of the games I'm covering are single-player games, so that's not a real big issue. Here we have a Steam Spy, which tells what the average playtime for any player is, which that information probably isn't super useful. It's probably a lot better to have the How Long to Beat plugin that tells me, well, some people beat the main story in 2 hours, and then a completionist beat this in 20 hours, and that's actually a very different amount of time, so I'm not sure why it would take 20 hours to complete a point-and-click adventure. And we won't really be scrolling down too much on reviews, but if we get down to the point where we have to reviews, I really am only interested in the negative reviews, and I'm only really interested in reviews that are particularly of some length. It's nice if they have a too long didn't read at them, but for instance, this positive review that says very good game, there are 100 different endings. Oh, I guess that explains. Well, I guess that explains the 20 hours on that. That's usually not helpful information if it's just a sentence. And generally speaking, if it's positive reviews, it's usually not that helpful anyways. Here you have a recommended game that just says, huh, as far as a review. Steam really doesn't do anything to incentivize people to review games, so getting even 276 reviews is actually a very high number. A lot of games will run into have only about 25. Let's move on to the next game, though. If we really get desperate and we have to decide, we'll look at the developer and the publisher's pages to see if what other kind of games they've made. And it looks like we're going to be doing horror games, at least 2 in a row. Next game we have is Bad Mojo Redux. It's rated very positive with 62 reviews. It came out in 1996. It's a full motion video horror puzzle game. Again, $5.99. I don't think I really need to look at it any further than that. There's no reason for what I'm saying to consider removing that. Next we have Brakes Are for Losers, which is not a horror game, thank goodness. This is basically an updated version of an arcade game that I played as a kid, where you'd go to this arcade machine with a steering wheel and it had an accelerator and you'd go in circles. Not sure that arcade game actually was ever really that fun, but they've changed it a little bit here, and I've seen a lot of games like this. So this one is a 2017 game with 14 positive reviews, or 14 reviews, 78% of which are mostly positive, and it came out about almost a year ago as of this recording. So a $10 game. I have a little bit of hesitation keeping this one on the wish list. I'm looking at this. Let's see. Reading the reviews, negative reviews. I kind of want to remove this game. Like, it doesn't have enough reviews. It's not above my threshold. I want to see at least 25 reviews. It's a year old, so what I'm probably leaning towards, and a lot of this is just subjective decision on how you feel about a game or not, but I'm probably leaning towards giving this one more year. Next year when I do this, there will be hopefully a lot less games and not a lot more on my wish list. This year's cleanup involves basically every game that has ever been released. This developer hasn't made anything else, but of course they haven't made anything else because it's been only about a year. My cutoff for whether I consider a developer still actively developing games is probably by the point of 4+ years, 5 years, if they haven't made a new game. This is from the publisher that published Another Lost Phone, which is a game I chose to keep on my wish list. So Palladius is definitely a recognizable indie publisher. And then Plug-in Digital, I don't think I've ever heard of them as a publisher. How you have two publishers on Steam is an interesting question, certainly. Yeah, I think Breaks Are for Losers is going to be... I'm going to give it another year, but also there are probably some other games like this that I will see as we go down the alphabet, and I may find that there's a better version of this, better reviewed, a better active player base. This game does say it has multiplayer. We won't be paying a lot of attention to that because I don't really get into the multiplayer aspects when I'm reviewing a game. Next we have Baldur's Gate Enhanced Editions. A lot of these older games, this one from 2013, are thoughts in my mind, certainly. Should I play the Baldur's Gate series? Would I enjoy this classic RPG fantasy game? In general, RPGs are always a scary thing where they potentially will take up a considerable amount of your time. The reason why, like, Baldur's Gate 1 is on the wish list is because of Baldur's Gate 2. Let's see, the bundle here includes 1, 2 Siege of Dragonspear DLC, a bunch of other DLC. 2, let's see, I imagine what we'll find is the exact next thing on the wish list is actually Baldur's Gate 2. Well, actually it isn't. So that's an oversight on my part. So instead of removing this game, I'm gonna add Baldur's Gate 2 and to the wish list, and then that'll help me have a better idea about whether or not I really want to play this. Baldur's Gate 2, for example, came out in 2013 and it's rated very positive amongst its 2,452 reviews. Next we have a game on Steam called Balthazar's Dream. Again, a mostly positive, 76% positive game, but it only has 13 user reviews, and it's just too easy to do review manipulation and not get caught, I feel, with 13 reviews. Like, it's not unreasonable to think that somebody who can develop a game can get 13 people to go and review it positively, or review it in any way. See, seems like this is a pixel graphics game where you're playing as a dog platforming. and swinging. I don't like the life bar or the energy bar. It looks like it might be an energy bar in the middle of the screen. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of other UI. I think this probably is a little bit too much of a student project to have any relevancy. As my wish list has gotten bigger and bigger, I have to increase my standards, and games like this, while I would really like to find a hidden gem and think that maybe this game is a hidden gem, this probably is just not one. Like, we see definitely a lot of platformers. So I'm looking here. The other game that this developer is making is coming out in 2019 and it's called Artificer, and looking at that, it does not look very interesting at all, and so that didn't help its case at all. It made it worse. $2.99. I'm not gonna really be too interested on price, because price certainly goes sell. Let's see. The main core mechanic, which is, well, platforming sucks. The controls feel floating and annoying and just generally induce rage. This is one negative review, and I could certainly see that. So you have the developer as the publisher also, which is weird because they aren't the publisher for their next game. Psilocybin Games. Isn't psilocybin the active component in mushrooms? And you see mushrooms in this game, which kind of pushes us to maybe feel like a little bit more of a troll game than it is. So it's really just not up to level quality. Unfortunately, we're not gonna probably run into a lot of games that are just 100% awful quality games, because I have enough standards to not put those on the wish list in the first place. A typical live stream that happens on a Monday or Wednesday or Friday typically has me go through, I would say, about 50 games on Steam, and generally speaking, maybe 5 of them get on the wish list. So it's already filtering out a very large amount. This is now a secondary pass to filter out even more. This game, Banished, is rated very positively. It's from 2014. Maybe not the style of game I'd ever actually want to play, so this is kind of a game that I'll keep on my wish list, but when it comes down to a Steam sale, when I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, this is a game that's actually unlikely to ever make it into the shopping cart. $20 is pretty high for something from 2014 also, but there's really nothing here that would knock this out until I can make a much harder decision to say I'm just never going to play a city builder strategy game or a simulation game ever again in my life, and I'm not quite to that way. This one's going to get another year. This over the last year or two, there was a game that was a troll game talking about the history of slavery in Africa, and Banzo Marks of Slavery, I think, is the non-troll game version of that. I think, but I am not 100% sure. Like, you're touching on a very delicate topic, and it's important to be done right if it's gonna be done. There was another game that I tried to play that was like a very African-centric story of a king of an African country, and I really wanted to play it, and I really wanted to enjoy it. Unfortunately, it was just so incredibly slow paced. Like I couldn't really get anywhere with it, and so I rage quit it, which usually I don't rage quit games. This is a game that's rated 90% positive of 10 user reviews, which kind of tells you nothing, but I'll give it another year because it's a 2018 game. Let's see, let's look at this Urka game bundle and see what else they have. They have a game that's called Queen of the Seas that's 37 reviews and mostly positive. It looks like pixel graphics. Queen of the Seas 2. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. And then a bunch of DLC. Now, Steam actually says different numbers on the number of reviews. There will actually be more reviews down below than the 10 they're talking about. This number 10 is the ones that they count because they know you bought it directly through Steam. You didn't get a free code somewhere. This developer, even though I don't like the graphics of like Queen of the Seas, is still getting positive remarks on everything. That seems pretty simplistic though, and this was a 2017 game, so it's a little suspicious to go in 1 year from animating something that is looks like MS Paint graphics to moving up to something that looks a little bit more closer to modern graphics. I still would say it's probably Windows 95 level graphics. But yeah, I'll give this game one more time. In all honesty, I'm probably giving it more slack than I normally would, because I really would like to cover a game that that was more African centric and told some history tales and educated me in particular about some of the African countries and their histories. I know that's a lot to ask, because there's a lot of different countries in Africa and a lot of history there, but most of those countries are very poor or have been very poor until relatively recently, so there's not a lot of programmers from those countries. This game is Basketball, which is a very positively reviewed game. This is a weird game. The gameplay kind of changes throughout there. He says it's an experimental 2D basketball based platformer, which chapter uses the mechanics and the idea of basketball in a different way. It's probably not a super long game, but there's really no reason. Yeah, 52 minutes for completionist. Experience $4.99. Some of these experimental art games are a little expensive if you buy them at full price. I tend to try not to buy any games at full price, but there's no reason why that would leave. Here is an interesting question that I kind of like fan feedback on. There has been announcements that there will be, or at least there have been rumors that there will be a new announcement for a new Batman game. I'm not sure it's going to be a Rocksteady Arkham Asylum style game though, since the latest Batman Arkham Asylum game was a huge failure. Now, as for my own personal experience, I did play Arkham Asylum on Xbox 360, and I may have started the second one and not finished it. I'm pretty sure I played the first one all the way through. I'm 50-50 on really on whether I want to play this series or not. I definitely don't like the combo fighting system in this game. I did like the collectability, and I moderately liked the maneuverability systems in the first game. This is rated very positively, or 95% overwhelmingly positively in its lifetime for the first game. The Arkham City game which that was in Arkham City is in 2012, this was in 2010, so 2 years later. Probably implies Arkham City was the second one in the series. I might be a little bit off on this. Was only rated 94%, oh, very positive, but still very positive there. And then the Enemy Within Telltale series for Batman is a Telltale game, which is rated 85% positively and not related to them. I've played almost every Telltale game, so there really is no reason not to finish the job. And since Telltale has basically gone out of business, I could probably finish the Telltale bundle a second time, since that's how I got most of the Telltale games in the first place, and only spend maybe $40. Although I'm still kind of waiting for even a sale at this point. But yeah, I heard people didn't like at least the second season of the Telltale Batman game. The 2015 Batman Arkham Knight game was only 76% positive over its lifetime, so you went from 95% to 94%. This is, I think, where it started to lose some steam. I know there was definitely a Batman game that was not made by Rocksteady Studios that came out too. This came out in 2015, which would have been 3 years after 2012. Yes, Batman Arkham Origins overall is 84% positively, and this is WB Games Montreal and Splash Damage. This came out in 2013, so yeah, it would have gone Arkham City, then Arkham Origins, then Arkham Knight, as far as the order. But this is definitely a lot of commitment. Certainly, you're talking at least 4, I think 5 games that are running 30 hours. So you're talking probably 180 hours plus of gameplay if you're going to be really obsessive and collective about it. Maybe I wouldn't be. Maybe I'd just try to kind of speedrun and do the story elements. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of DLC that got added over the time too, where I suspect the first Batman Arkham Asylum game didn't really have too much DLC, if any. And let's see. There is a question here. Do I want to buy the Arkham Origins or Arkham Origins Blackgate Deluxe Edition? Amplify is the 2D game developed by Armature Studio. So this is some other game that I hadn't even heard about. That looks like it's probably a cell phone port that came out in 2014. It was brought to Steam. So that's even more commitment in the Batman series. Oh, and by the way, as a YouTuber, I can relatively guarantee you that a lot of the WB games are going to have a lot of copyright claims and content ID claims, which would cause ads to run on videos that weren't supporting me, because any ads running on my channel is not supporting me at all. They completely demonetized all the small YouTubers like me. But it would also cause audio to just randomly be muted, or entire videos to be blocked, which is a thing that's starting to happen more and more. WB in particular is pretty bad about that. Moving on to the next Batman game. Wow, actually not. That is a little surprising. I thought there would have been another Batman game in this series. Let's see. Yeah, Batman Arkham City? No. Arkham Asylum. Arkham Knight. Is Arkham Knight really the most recent one? Did that terrible game come out in 2015, or did they remove the other Batman game? Interesting question. Let's see. Maybe, perhaps, the most recent Arkham game, Arkham Knight, got enough patches in it where it stopped being an issue. Let's check on Rocksteady as a developer and see what games they have listed right now. Yeah, the last game they have listed is from June 23rd, 2015. Boy, does time fly. So either Arkham Knight was the really bad game, the game that finally forced Steam to have a better refund policy, but even Arkham Knight now in the last 30 days is 78% positive, so it seems like they've probably patched everything. I have another plugin, by the way, that warns you if it has de novo in it, but yeah, this game was awful before. Yeah, I'm a little confused as far as the order. I guess people could let me know in the comments if there actually is a Batman game that came out and it's just now still completely removed from Steam. I know there was one that was removed. The latest Batman game was removed for a temporary time, but I thought it was relisted eventually. I haven't really been following the story that much. Moving on, because this certainly is going to take a lot of time, and I don't have a lot of time to wander around and let my mind wander. We have Battle Chasers Night War, a very positive game. Let's see, overall, it's really only important to look at the overall by default. The only thing that would become a little suspicious is if the overall was 80% positive of 2,144 reviews, and then the last 30 days was mixed or negative, if it's like 2 steps worse, because that might be an indication that they added in some horrible update or microtransactions or something that just ruined the game. This is a turn-based JRPG being published by THQ Nordic, which THQ Nordic scares me for how much they're acquiring and publishing. They have the Darksiders series, and Darksiders 3 is just about to come out. It probably is out by the time you're seeing this video, and my fear is that THQ Nordic is spending too much money acquiring licenses and publishing so many games that they don't have enough actual developers and or enough funds making the games that they're publishing good. There's some that may not be how it works though, but it very well may. THQ was a company that existed before THQ Nordic, and it practically bankrupted itself by getting a lot of games and just overcommitting and over-publishing and basically flooding the market single-handedly for video games. And Nordic Games basically has bought the name to THQ and bought a significant portion of the licenses from THQ, and it's probably only a matter of time before they change their name from Nordic Games to THQ Nordic, which is what it is now. Then they probably in another year or two will change it just directly back to THQ in some weird turn of events. This is a single player game. In fact, it doesn't even have any multiplayer, which is a little weird. It looks like a game that very well might have been a multiplayer game, but I don't really know anything about this. I don't recall ever hearing about it. It came out about a year ago. However, it's rated good, so I'll keep it on the wish list. It just falls right into the question of what, if any, RPG should I play, and what, if any, JRPGs should I play. I think this game in particular probably does not fall under the category of what I would call a JRPG, because it's just doesn't have enough anime characters in it. If we want to talk about a game with anime characters in it, we have Battle Chef Brigade Deluxe. Now, this gets into an interesting thing because Amazon Prime gives away games if you connect your Amazon Prime subscription to Twitch, and then you get these free games on Twitch, the Twitch launcher. So, because I've done that, I technically already own this game. Unfortunately, I'll just never remember that, and I'll just end up buying it again on Steam. I have over 900 games right now, and any game that is on a different service might as well not exist. And so, while I'd love to cover this game, I'm not willing to make a special effort to install the Twitch launcher, install the game, play it, not get the Steam achievements, not get the playtime, not get the trading cards. Right now, this game is not even that expensive. It's 40% off for $11.99, which is good because I think it really is a game that probably would sell better as a $11, $15 game. It seems like it only takes 10 hours to beat. It's very highly reviewed. What the game is about is you run around into some platform areas and do some hack and slashing to kill creatures, to collect parts, to make dishes, to serve in an Iron Chef style competition. Very interesting, unique idea from the publisher of Adult Swim Games, and I'm not sure what else Trinket Studios has made, but I wouldn't be surprised if they actually haven't made anything else here. But a very strong showing, and a good comparison of, like, here's a strong showing idea and game that got probably some publishing funding from Adult Swim Games as their first release, whereas a significant portion of people on Steam make their first game and it just looks like garbage, and there's really no way you're going to build up a following and a fan base for your company if your first release is just this extremely low effort product that in no way could intrigue or make people want to play it, and so much so that 5 years later not even 10 people have reviewed your game. So you just really, if you start on the wrong foot, you're dead in the water. Now, this game is Battle Chess, the original Battle Chess for, I believe, Windows 95. This may very well have been able to be run on Windows 3.1, but you can see there's a mouse indicator, so I don't know if it could have been run on DOS. So this is a high nostalgia. Unfortunately, you run into this weird thing with older games. It does definitely violate my standard of having only 17 user reviews, but that's really never gonna change, because very few people are gonna buy this brand new because it looks so incredibly old. Only old people like me who played this game when it came out brand new will want to play this. And ironically, it's probably still in the top 25 best chess games on Steam. Again, you'd probably get back to like a tabletop simulator question, but even at that, I think Battle Chess, with its unique animations, still has a slight appeal. It gets a little bit weirder though when you get to its sequel, Battle Chess 2 Chinese Checkers, because that certainly is not or Chinese Chess. That is certainly a game I don't remember playing, and so you can see it only has like 3 user reviews, but I am certainly willing to, if I was going to do a retro game retrospective, I suppose was what I would call it, I'd sure be willing to spend 30 minutes spotlighting Battle Chess 1 and then spend another 30 minutes spotlighting Battle Chess 2. Seems like Chinese chess is a slightly different style of game, so it might be a little bit interesting to play this. Although I'm not sure there really is a version of Chinese chess. I know there's a Japanese chess that's, I think, called shogi, but it looks completely different than this. And then we have a 2015 game called Battle Chess Game of Kings, and so you could see how I could do a series here on my channel of playing all the battle chess games. This one has 192 reviews. Unfortunately, it's only 45% positive, so people do not like it. I wouldn't be surprised if this just does not run well. Otherwise, it really should just work perfectly. I mean, this should be possibly one of the best games ever. Let's see. It was updated October 1st, so they're still working on it even now. I'm recording this in October. Let's see what the negative reviews are, because that's interesting. Do not buy. Was looking forward to this game being released and polished when I bought it. There you go. It hasn't been an update in ages and the game is buggy. And see, that was posted March 21st. Glitches in the middle, kicking me off, having to start the game all over again. I could see the problem here is if the game crashes. They're saying the developer gave up on this game. They're saying the game has total glitches. Yeah, if you're in the middle of an hour-long chess game and the game crashes, that's a problem. That being said, I'm willing to risk it because I'm thinking that maybe this has been fixed. Or at least they're claiming it's been fixed. Chinese chess algorithm crash fixed. Let's see. Replace the use of string to kernel to a version that supports multi-thread optimization. I've never seen an update that actually is mentioning a function. Fixed a race condition that causes random crashes. Cleaned up dead code. Updated texture. This is like a bug report that would be internal, an update internal. Massive subsystem rewrite. So yeah, I don't want to wander onto a rant here, but it looks like maybe this game has been fixed, and so I'd be willing to give it a chance. Or, you know, maybe it would turn into a 30-minute spotlight video of me just raging, which that can often be interesting too. Here's a game that hasn't been out, and more I'm trying to not have games on my wish list that aren't out yet. This one doesn't even have a release date. It has an interesting story behind it. A father who is a programmer, allegedly, and I do want to emphasize allegedly, his daughter was watching him play Ghosts and Goblins or Ghouls and Goblins. That there's two games by the similar names that play slightly differently. One was an arcade version, one was a console version. And she asked, why can't I play as a girl? Which studies that I've heard of say that really is not asked that much. But okay. Let's say it's true. And then he got a lot of press, this programming father, and started a Kickstarter to make to start the development. Last update was May 31st. This game is probably not coming out until 2021, 2022, if I was to guess. A female version of Ghosts and Goblins with an updated idea, a female protagonist with Ghosts and Goblins with an updated concept is an interesting thought, certainly, and it does look like it's a pretty good game. However, it's going to leave my wish list for the main reason that it just doesn't have a release date. We can get back into whether or not it's a good game, if it ever comes out, and at that point. But yeah, I've drastically changed how I get information as far as new games. I really don't read mainstream video game media's coverage of games that don't have release dates anymore. I mostly stick with the Twitter feed called What's on Steam, which is just a bot that tells me every game that comes out on Steam. And that is more than enough games every day to keep me busy. So I don't need to jump on hype trains and get super excited about games that aren't going to come out for years or possibly never. And the truth is, a large majority of the games that get hyped turn out to be just massive disappointments, in part because they were hyped. Whereas had they just come out and people played it, and then some normal people on Steam had just played it and reviewed the game and said, hey, this is a good game, or even if big mainstream video game reviewers had played the game and said, hey, this is a good game, it's out now, but without doing the pre-hype elements, I would have been a lot happier. I would have been a lot happier with a lot of the experiences I've had in the past. This game, Battle Riders, doesn't strike me as something that is good enough. It is mostly positive. It's over that threshold of 25, but I can probably guess there's at least a half a dozen games like this where you have cars that are fighting each other and going in laps. This one looks a little bit like it might have been a upgraded remake of a cell phone game. The graphics aren't good enough for a racing game because racing games have an incredibly high standard of graphics. So I think I can pretty easily remove this one and make a special exception to remove this game. This developer released this in 2017, so of course they don't have anything else that they have released or are working on. Most developers, by the way, don't put games on Steam pages. They don't make Steam pages for games unless they're at least 6 months out from releasing the game. So Steam, while flooded with quite many things, is definitely not flooded with a lot of announcements for games that are never coming out. Stream Greenlight maybe did that a little bit more, but Stream Greenlight is gone, and now we have Stream Direct. So we have a game called Battle Squares. This came out in 2018, so it gets, I think, another year. By the way, early access banners have been automatically added to any game that's in the early access, and this early access warning has been added, so it's really made it easier to browse Steam a little bit. There's still a lot that Steam could do. This is a sort of Mario Party looking board game. The only thing I would want to see is if this developer in its time has developed or published anything else, because this could be a troll game, although generally speaking it wouldn't be, because you wouldn't make something that looks this unique if it was a troll game. So yeah, this one gets another year. We'll come back next year. If it doesn't have 25 reviews by then, I'll make probably the decision to remove that. Next we have something called Battle Slots 2025, The Great Pizza Wars. It's a Rooster Teeth game, which puts me in a weird position. Should I play games that are created by the developers of other YouTube channels? Does that get into a dangerous nepotism realm? There are certainly several games that have YouTubers voice act in them, or in some other way contribute to games. In fact, I've even covered some games like that, like the Angry Video Game Nerd and the Angry Video Game Nerd video game, I believe it was, and that was a pretty bad game. So it's questionable if I should do that. I guess you just have to disclose if that changes your bias or perspective in any way. The fact that this is a Rooster Teeth game. I'm not even 100% sure what Rooster Teeth makes on YouTube. A lot of these companies are kind of everywhere. Inherently, I think it doesn't matter in this case because this game just doesn't look visually appealing. It's a 4-player local game that doesn't really even seem like it has a single player experience or much of a single player experience. It's one of these games where it's really just player versus player, and that's not something that I'm actually interested in playing, so I can take this off the wish list actually pretty easily. The only thing I'd like to click here is see what else has this publisher played. Like Ruby, Grim Eclipse, I definitely do want to play that, and maybe I would buy some of the DLC or all the DLC. Angry Video Game Nerd was actually one of the video games that they had. So I guess I've already played one of their games. I guess it really didn't change my opinion too much. As for the developer, it's probably not worth your effort to look both at the developer and the publisher. What I'm looking for is, does the publisher or the developer have credibility? Do they gain credibility by what else they've created or what else they haven't created? Next we have a game called Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. Interesting question at this point, whether it's really worth playing a Battlestar Galactica. That TV series is done. It's been wrapped up. I know it had a fan base, but it was a pretty small fan base. I don't think it ever came anywhere close to even like a Stargate fan base, let alone a Star Trek or Star Wars fan base. I liked the TV series of Battlestar Galactica. I'm not sure I watched every single episode, but I watched a significant portion of it. Let's see. There's a couple DLCs. This is rated 79% positive out of 604 reviews, so there's really no reason to decide now, but if this was ever at a really cheap price, $40 is rather expensive, I'd have to question whether I'd play this. Here we have a point-and-click adventure. I'm obsessed with point-and-click adventure games. Unfortunately, we can see now that this has 25 reviews and only 44% of them are positive, which, while that is a small below my 25 or just on the cusp of my 25 review threshold, I think it probably is enough of an indicator if half of the people hate it. This developer has made nothing else, of course, because this came out in 2017. More and more point-and-click adventure games, if they're bad, I want to get rid of them. Heck, even the classic point-and-click adventure games generally aren't that great. And so they treat you pretty bad even if you're playing some of the classics. Hidden object games are another series of games that will be in that similar vein. And we are at the BEs, so we're getting through the B's a little bit quicker than the A's, I think. I think there was a major problem with going through all the A's on the wish list because there was a significant number of games that were just A space and then something else. This next game is Bear With Me, a collector's edition. This came out in 2018 and it only has 25 reviews. It's 27 reviews, although it's 100% positive. I think part of the problem with this game was that when it was first on sale, it wasn't a collector's edition and it was only like episode 1, and so it felt like a game that very well may not have a finish to the story. This is a probably German point and click noir inspired point and click adventure game. It's probably a little dark in its storytelling, but not horrific, if I was to guess. For its weirdness factor alone, I definitely love to play a weird game. And somebody once criticized my YouTube channel. They looked at all the videos I'd covered and they said, I've never seen any of these games before. I have no idea what any of these games are. And my other fans on the chat were like, well, that's a good thing, duh. Like, you don't want a YouTube channel where everybody's just playing Fortnite all the time. Maybe sometimes you want that, but if you're ever going to learn anything new, if you're ever going to have a new experience, you're going to have somebody that brings you into a new realm of reality and shows you something you haven't seen before. Alright. Next game we have on this Steam is called Beast Boxing Turbo, and what I just saw in the trailer, there was this console Nintendo made called the Virtual Boy that was a complete and total failure that looked awful. And there was a game for the Virtual Boy. They only made about 25 games for the Virtual Boy in total, called Telro Boxing, which was robots boxing. And this game has a very similar feel in how it plays to Telro Boxing, and that is why I think I would have kept this. I'm always looking for boxing games that aren't like 100% simulations and they're a little bit closer to Mike Tyson Punch-Outs. This is $4.99. It's from 2013. It probably will never get above or very much above 63 reviews, but if anything, I think I would have put this on my top list, and this would be actually the first game we've seen so far that are gonna go to the top of the list. So unless I can find a better boxing game, this will be it. Now I want to double check here and make sure it doesn't require VR, because VR has been a thorn in the side of a lot of games. People will make their game so it only plays in VR, and then it stops being accessible to me because I'm not gonna spend hundreds of dollars on a VR headset that I probably couldn't record or stream and play these games that would require me to stand and exert a lot of physical effort, which most VR games fall apart when you think about that. Do you really want to stand for more than 30 minutes? Probably not. Most games in VR don't even last that long per session because of that. Next game we have on Steam is called Beat Cop. It's 67% positive in the last 30 days, but it's 83% positive overall. So the question is, what has changed in the last 30 days? This has a retro pixel art 8-bit looking art graphics, which are slightly suspicious when the camera is zoomed out particularly far, because that generally is just done to hide the fact that the developers of the game can't really animate anything. So yeah, when you are not having to draw faces or details or anything, that's not really good graphics. It's something that had to be done for old video games like NES games, not something that people ever really wanted to have done. If we could have had better graphics in those days, we would have had them. This is $14.99. Let's see what the negative reviews are, but I think I'm going to take it. Let's see. I love the 80s Sierra Police Quest type games, and this seemed to be a nostalgic throwback to the start of the game. Trouble is the plot makes no sense, and you spend the whole time struggling to hit your daily quota of car towing tickets. I thought I was just going to fine, and then suddenly the game was over and I was arrested, outed into the press. No idea what the explanation was. With a lot of tweaking to the storyline
and giving you time to play it thoroughly without failing. Your police duties, it could be awesome. Here we have the game elements become quite repetitive. The humor is also more hit or miss. This is a fun, good concept, but so it seems like it just falls apart in the gameplay mechanic. I think I own the Sierra Police Quest games, but I'm actually looking for some kind of tool-assisted speedrun to play any Sierra game that I imagine doesn't really exist, so I'd have to potentially create my own software that would allow me to load up a script of where a mouse would click or what you would type. I think a lot of Sierra games don't even have mouse support, because I'm definitely not going to play a game where I'm just typing crazy things trying to figure out the right thing to say or do, but I would be willing to play the games if I was basically just following a walkthrough. And so if I could find some tool assistance that would follow a walkthrough and type the exact phrases, that would be nice. It doesn't really have to be a speedrun though, but that's generally what it would be. Next we have a game called Beat Hazard. It's rated very positively and overwhelmingly positively, which is weird because it doesn't really strike me as a game I want to play. These top-down shoot-'em-up bullet hell games have way too much on the screen, and they're just way distracting, and they just never really catch my attention. So this is probably one of these games where, even though it's very positive, and it's really not going to get any more reviews, it came out in 2010, it might have been very positively reviewed in 2010 and now just doesn't meet up to current standards. This is a game I think I'm just gonna see. Apparently at some point they patched the game to advertise other games, which so many developers have started doing that. And the latest Telltale game, what was it? The Walking Dead: A New Frontier, was horrible about advertising other Telltale games. Yeah, Beat Hazard, I think, is leaving my wish list. Let's see what there's a free-to-play game that they've also developed, and that came out January 31st this year. So, yep, just not a game for me. Like I said, opinions are going to be subjective on some of these games, even if the mob rule does say it's a good game. It may just have nothing that appeals to me whatsoever, and so I wouldn't be willing to play it long enough to make it to the end, and that's just not going to be a good experience for anybody. Generally speaking, I try to play games all the way to the end, and rage quits are particularly rare. Maybe I rage quit 1 or 2 games in a year, and I try to keep it at that. Here we have a game called Beat the Game that looks incredibly weird, and I think it's in its weirdness that's why it's getting to stay on the wish list. It's rated very positively with 57 reviews. That's enough to keep it on the wish list too. Only thing I want to be interested to check is to see if maybe they had made some other game. This is what I would call a low effort title, or a very low effort title. They should definitely have thought of something better than Beat the Game, even if it is a music surreal stylized adventure, and so the idea is it is like quote unquote beat the game. It still is a generic name.
And here we have Beauty and the Beast Hidden Object Fairy Tale. I'm questioning if these types of games have any search engine optimization. Basically, if somebody types in Beauty and the Beast on YouTube and I play the Beauty and the Beast a hidden object game, will my video potentially show up in the search results? And then can that convince somebody to watch my video, and can that convince somebody to stick with my video long enough to find something they enjoy about it, because it's sort of clickbaity, but it's not really, because it is really just tangentially related. This is a $2.99 hidden object game that came out in 2018. I think it gets another year, but the vast majority of hidden object games tend to be about $9.99, and they tend to be pretty expensive. This is also probably one of those games that has some red flags because it's in a bundle with several other games, but it doesn't really look that bad. I'm not sure I really want to play any more hidden object games though. Moving on, we have a game called Beckett, which has nudity apparently, gore, and it's a point-and-click adventure game. It seems like it has some amount of full motion video in it too, but not too much. Again, weird looking game, so I love weird games. It was nominated by the British Arts Film Theatre Association, commonly known as BAFTA, which honestly, video games get more BAFTA awards than any other kind of award, so there's a little bit of credibility into that. So I don't see any reason why Beckett would leave the wish list. Beglitched now. Beglitched is an adventure indie match 3 cute game. It's a game about insecurity in our computers and ourselves. It's rated 81 reviews very positively, so I think this one stays. I have a slight fondness for match 3 games, so I wouldn't be completely opposed to playing one with some story in it too, and a limited experience. If it turns out, if I find a match 3 game that really is just an infinite match 3 game where you just play it forever, then that's where it gets into problems. I've covered, for instance, Bejeweled 1, and I really didn't like it, but I probably would want to cover all the PopCap games as just another company that doesn't make games anymore. So I'd like to see Bejeweled 2 Deluxe. I probably need to double check and make sure I didn't somehow buy Bejeweled 2 and not get Bejeweled 2 Deluxe. But yeah, there's no reason to take this off. There's definitely a lot of people that liked it way back in 2006. Bejeweled Deluxe. I swear I had one of these games. Did I buy the original Bejeweled, or I could swear I bought something, because I've already covered Peggle and I've already covered something called Bejeweled. Like, let's just look at their bundle here. Bejeweled 2 Deluxe Bejeweled. I remember playing Feeding Frenzy on the Xbox 360 Summer of Arcade, I believe. I played Peggle Deluxe. I don't think I've played Peggle Knights. I played Plants vs. Zombies. I probably played Bejeweled 3 and didn't like it, is my guess. So I went backwards. So yeah, if I didn't like the third one, it's probably asking a lot. I'd probably never spend the money to buy Bejeweled 1 or 2, but I'll leave them there just to complete the collection. I could see definitely a reason to play and talk about Bejeweled just because of its relevancy back in 2006, because these were games that helped both sell video games on PCs at the time and also helped sell video games to a more female demographic. Bejeweled Twist is another one, so that came out in 2006, so no reason to take that off. Ben 10 is a game I actually just recently added, so I'm not going to take it off. These are Nickelodeon cartoons are getting some more games made. The question would come down to whenever this is on sale for maybe about $10, whether Ben 10 is still a relevant cartoon or not. I'm not sure it really airs on Nickelodeon anymore. It's one of these cartoons that came out way past when I was a kid, so I wasn't really following it. But if it does have some relevancy, if I thought maybe it would get kids to watch my YouTube videos and I could help educate them by covering the game, I'd definitely play this. Unfortunately, I don't think I'd ever play Ben and Ed. Let's see what the problem here is. A unique issue on Ben and Ed is the game plays some kind of music that is constantly content ID'd and claimed on YouTube. I guess really that doesn't matter too much right now though, so if I wanted to cover it, I'd just cover it. But there is a slight fear in that. Let's see what the most recent reviews are and why it's mixed. And just let's see. There's no Steam workshop for custom built maps. Here's a review that goes on really long. Really long. Here's real short. Looks way more fun than it is. So we're not getting a lot of negative reviews. I could come in here and say, show me the 3 negative reviews from this time period. Show me the 2 negative reviews from this time period. I can click on the right thing. Let's see. Yeah, it's probably not really worth it. You can also draw a box. It's probably not worth it to spend the time to go through this though. I think I could probably get away with just not playing this. Let's see. Yeah. It's a game where you play as a zombie and you do a lot of platforming and you get your limbs chopped off and then they have to get put back on. Let's see. Do I really want to remove it or do I want to leave it? Well, they have this new game called Ben and Ed Blood Party, which might be an improved version on it, and I guess that potentially gives it some relevancy. And this came out February 13th, 2018. So the original game now would be useful to have so that you could come back and play a polished experience that looks slightly better. And they really didn't, in all fairness, this was only a 2015 game, so in 3 years they managed to come out with a new game that is an improvement, and that was already on my wish list. Okay, so Yeah, I'll leave those. I've got to be careful here. I may get a little too generous and leave things on Steam. Here we have a free-to-play game called Bendy and the Inky Machine. If this is free to play, then I probably should just put it and install it, because I heavily suspect this isn't free to play. Yeah, it isn't, because then you have to buy chapter 2 for some DLC in chapter 4, and so it's a $14.37 game pretending to be free to play, which they should label that better. Regardless of that, as a first-person horror weird looking game, Cuphead would have, I imagine, come out after this game did. This looks very interesting. And certainly it's not something that got a lot of coverage either, so even though it is kind of doing some ridiculousness about hiding its price, I'm going to put it at the top of my wish list because I'd like to play this game. It looks kind of like a BioShock set in Disneyland, and the reviews support it moving forward. So we have Berserk, the Band of the Hawk, hack and slash action violence gore, and they immediately jump into the probably worst scene in the Berserk, the new Berserk anime there. So mostly positive action adventure hack and slash game, $59.99 with a decent number of DLC that seem to be clothed DLCs. Also, while they're at it, why don't you buy the anime too? This is probably a game that, had it come out more recently, needs to be age gated. It's rated M for real. Yeah, it says partial nudity, sexual content, intense violence, blood and gore is the bigger issue. But yeah, there's no reason why this would come off my wish list. There is possibly reasons why this is a game that I'd have trouble streaming, because Twitch is very conservative, YouTube is very conservative, and I really haven't found a service that seems to be closer towards will let you do everything as long as you age gate it appropriately, or will let you play at least mainstream video games as long as you label it and age gate it appropriately. And I don't want to get community guideline strikes on my YouTube channel and get my YouTube channel deleted because of that. It's not worth the risk. Here we have Besiege. This game never really sells itself to me. Also, this is a early access game from 2015, and it's still in development like 3 years later. I'm gonna leave it just because there's such a massive number of people that like it. It's 94% positive with 22,782 user reviews. So this is really just gonna be a game like I'm bending my will to the masses and keeping it on the wish list. Personally, I think the game looks boring and is not worth my time. Moving on, we have a game called Betrayer, which is a first-person historic, maybe it's a walking simulator game. It's 66% positive in the last 30 days, where it was 81% positive before. It came out in 2014, so there's some interesting things here. Looking at the game as it is, it's probably too niche and just too old. Maybe in 2014 this would have been alright, but it's definitely looks like it's lacking polish, and time has not treated it very well. So yeah, let's look at the reviews and see why people don't like it. Let's see. Hoped it'd be a good game, but the time I spent sneaking around an empty world with monotone occasional fights left me thinking the game feels much older than it is. An attempt at a mystery survival type of game that didn't do it for me. Let's see if there's another negative review. I understand the good reviews, I understand the bad reviews, 3 out of 10. Interesting review. This one is just a rant about not getting a refund. Well, that negative review doesn't really help me any. You can click if the review is helpful or not, or if it was funny. I don't know why they have the funny tag. Yeah. I think this game just doesn't really have any relevancy. Unless this developer went on to make something else. Apparently they made 2 demos and one got deleted. Yeah, I think Betrayer could be removed. My wish list is just so incredibly big that anything that runs into even a little bit of frustration or a lack of quality is something that I probably shouldn't continue to want to play. Like, let's get through the potentially 5,000 plus good games on Steam before I start digging at the bottom of the barrel and start playing games that are mixed reviewed. Next we have a game called Between Me and the Night. It's 2016 review and it's 68% positive. Action indie horror game. Again, I think the mixed reviews alone probably tell me that I should take this off. Metacritic of 62%. Let's see, another point and click adventure game. It's in a indie gala game. Oops, that's not where I meant to go. Is there any deal plugin? Clicked the wrong thing. Bundles that include this game is this bundle, that a plugin. Boy, that looked exactly like a Steam bundle. Interesting. But I guess it does have the new tab button. Yeah, this game can leave the wish list. It's just another mediocre point and click adventure game, although questionable if in the end of looking through all the wish list, I wonder if maybe I really won't have that many point and click adventure games at all, because they will have all been rated mixed just because it's a controversial playstyle that a lot of people don't like. Alright, so this looks like it's mostly a text game, and I think for that reason I can probably remove it. Maybe. It looks like it's got some animation to it, and this came out in September, so I think it deserves another year. So yeah, let's give it a year to get some reviews. Right now it only has 2 user reviews, and if both of the user reviews were positive, that means nothing. If both of them the user reviews were negative, that really means nothing to me. We have Beyond Blue, which is a game that is coming out early 2019. It's a swimming around simulation underwater game. This is another game that probably needs to be removed from my wishlist. Like,
as much as I might be hyped or interested in new games that are coming out, I think just as a rule, to keep things nice and tight, any game that is not out yet is going to get removed, even if it looks like an amazingly good game. Or at the very least, I could put it on the follow list and follow it instead of put it on the wish list. It's kind of a shame that Steam does not allow you to have more than one wish list, because I could certainly do a lot better job if I could put different styles of games in different wish lists and maybe sort some things. There's no reason why Beyond Eyes would leave the wish list. This is a story of a blind girl that you play as. It's an interesting little walking simulator, basically. That came out in 2015. Let's see, Beyond Gravity. Let's see what kind of game this is. Some of these games I recognize completely, some of these games I don't. This game looks like it's a cell phone game. It's rated very positively, but I'm not sure it interests me for what it's showing. It's also only $1.99, but I'm not sure I'm in the position where I've been before. I have in the past, during Steam sales, decided to just buy a bunch of really cheap games for 99 cents, and then it really didn't feel like it was worth it, even at that point. A lot of times it gives you this feeling of, well, I went cheap and I got what I paid for, when I might have had a better experience had I simply bought $1 for one game for $60 instead of 60 games for $1. This doesn't look too bad, and some of these cell phone games, if they're done well and they're well reviewed, I could see myself doing a series pretty easily, just trying to get all the achievements, trying to 100% the game. So yeah, I'll leave Beyond Gravity on the wish list. Let's see, next we have Beyond the Invisible Darkness Case. This is a hidden object game for $2.99. It's a 2018 game, so it doesn't have any user reviews, so I guess I'll give it another year. Although, in all fairness, I probably should just remove all hidden object games. They're never really that good, but whatever. Just keep the motion going and keep moving through the list. We're at big BIs. Big Action Mega Fight is a very positive game from 2016. I'm not sure how many beat 'em up games I really want to play, and how many different styles of beat 'em up games I want to play. This one looks like it's pretty cartoony and silly, and that might be a good thing for a beat 'em up. But then again, there's a lot of old arcade classic beat 'em ups that it might be more relevant and more important for me to play those for the first time in my life, and play some of the greats and get an understanding of the system before I start playing games that maybe nobody else has ever heard of and might be not as good as the classics. Let's see. Next we have Big Money Deluxe. This is a PopCap game, and I think that's pretty much the only reason why it would stay on the wish list, is just because I'm gonna almost certainly buy all the PopCap games at some point. Big Pharma is the next game, which is a simulation strategy, kind of like the game Infinity Factory. I'm not sure how much of this game really has to do with Big Pharma. That may have just been the theme they chose. They could have easily chosen anything else. It's mostly positive, so I'm really not sure how many of these strategy games I want to play in the first place too, but I do want it on the wish list as far as games to consider. Next we have a game called Bio Inc. and Redemption. I played a game called Plague Inc. And this seems like this is a almost direct beat for beat clone of Plague Inc. It's mixed reviews in the last 30 days, came out in 2018. So let's see what the mixed reviews are. It's boring. The game makes me slow this time. Game crashes when I open it, can't even play. Request a refund. They'll comment if they fix the crash. I guess if a game crashed and I actually couldn't play it, it's 58 on OpenCritic, then that would be a potential reason. I'd really like to play a game like this if it worked. I'm just comes down to, does it really work? And this definitely is not from the same developer or publisher that made Plague Inc., but it is basically direct for direct, icon for icon copies. That being said, it would be kind of hard for me to go back and do any of the new content on Plague Inc. There have been some updates, and it was one of the first games I ever covered. Playing Bio Inc. might be a good excuse to go back and play an old game I've already covered. So yeah, there's no reason why I take this off the wish list. However, we have this Bit Trip series, and I'm not sure I want to play this game because it's a rhythm music game, and there's a whole series of these. Bit Trip Beat doesn't look that good, even though it's rated very positively. I think it really is just going to boil down to I don't have any rhythm personally, so me trying to play a music game doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm going to remove Bit Trip Beat from the wish list. And then next we have Bit Trip Presents Runner, Future Legend of the Rhythm Alien, which is a runner music game. Which again, I don't think I have any beats, so while this looks more interesting than the previous game, I'm still not sure I'd really want to play it. This is Runner 2. I believe the developer of the Bit Trip series, or one of the developers of one of the games, lost the Bit Trip name, and then they started just calling it something else. Yeah, I think I can probably get rid of this one too. Like the rhythm aspects of these games, even though they're rated very positively, I just don't think they're for me. And then you have Bit Trip Runner, which would have been the previous one. So, however they alphabetically put the names sometimes causes the games to be in non-chronological order. Let's see, let's look at what this developer's made otherwise. Bit Trip Runner, Bit Trip Beat, Bit Trip Presents Runner 2, Bit Trip Void, Bit Trip Fate, Bit Trip Flux, Bit Trip Core. It's just like Bit Trip Collection. Everything is called Bit Trip in their series. Moving on, we have a game called Black Closet, which is, I believe, a sort of odd RPG noir-esque anime detective game where you have to decide or figure out who is the bad guy in the school. It's a pretty weird looking game, and that's what brings it in, is it's not just your standard anime visual novel, which you might assume that it is from some of the screenshots. Apparently it is in the Yuri bundle. Yuri is the Japanese phrase for I believe girl on girl romance. So There must be some girl-on-girl romance at some point in the story, which is not super surprising. I wouldn't be surprised if it's an all-girls school. Moving forward, though, that one will stay on. Next, we have an anime game, Black Clover, which is a fighting multiplayer game. Is there any single player in this? Or is it just online? Take part in a 4-on-4 team battles and cast an array of magic spells opposing the team. You can assume 1 of 4 roles, use your role and spells. Best spells will cooperate. I want to do a little bit more research here and see if you can play. Let's see. Game also includes the original story not depicted in the currently airing Black Clover anime series. That's my real issue is, can you play as a single player? You'll have completed the single player within 2 hours. You rarely get one other player to play online. Never make the mistake I made buying this game. It's just shovelware with a big price tag. Makes it seem better than it is. I bought this game expecting multiplayer to be fun, but you never play humans. You just you and 7 bots. Disappointed. Also, I would say that the Black Clover anime is not really burning the world up. So, and you kind of have to be careful about anime games too, or anime spin-off games. And by that I mean games that are based on actual anime TV series, not games that just have anime looking characters, because I kind of use both phrases. Black Clover Quartet Nights can be removed from my wish list, even though it is 78% positive and is by all rights should be given another year. If already people are saying there's nobody online, that's a problem, and if this main story is 2 hours long, that's a problem. I wouldn't be surprised. It probably has no relevancy. Next we have Black Mesa, which is, I believe, the fan-made recreation of Half-Life. I own Half-Life and all the Valve games because they came in a bundle. So at some point I guess I'd want to play Black Mesa. You're in this weird position because it came out in early access in 2015 and it's still in early access. I think they're getting relatively close. I wouldn't be surprised by this time next year if they were completely done. Then of course the question is, if they've remade and fixed Black Mesa, Half-Life 1, what needs to be done to fix Half-Life 2, if anything? And then the question at that point comes to, well, can we get something that pretends like it's Half-Life 3 and finishes the story? Because that is the next question. Next game we have on Steam is called Black Mirror. It has nothing to do with the Netflix TV series, anthology series called Black Mirror. It's a remake that came out in 2017 of a point-and-click series. I've covered Black Mirror 1 and 2, and I believe I already own Black Mirror 3. This remake, I believe, is kind of a reboot and doesn't tell very much of the same story that happens in the first game. In all fairness, I did not like Black Mirror 1 and 2, the original ones, because they're just not very good games or very good stories. Particularly Black Mirror 1 had a twist in it that seemed pretty blatantly obvious very early on in the story. I'd say the twist in 2 was a little bit better, but you kind of knew there was going to be a twist. But for the most part, the point-and-click experience is just not great. Even here in this remake, this is another THQ Nordic game. they really only put it out because of the Netflix anthology series, and you can see 41% of 119 user reviews thought it was positive. So I'm kind of stuck now with finishing at least Black Mirror 3, and then I probably will buy this and play this, and I'm just gonna since I've committed so far and done half the games, I might as well just play all the Black Mirror games and go, well, these are examples of badly made point and click adventures. But I don't want to do that too often, so I definitely don't want to start any new series that turn out to be bad. Let's see, here's a 8/16 review positive game called Black Paradox. So I bet we have a handful at least of games just called Black something. This looks like a side-scrolling shooting game, which really aren't games that interest me. Let's see. I'm trying to look here and see if there's anything here. I will say that the graphics and animation look better than most side-scrolling shooting games, but it really doesn't strike me as a game I want to play. Let's look at this developer and see what else they've made. Nothing, basically. One other game. So yeah, I'll take Black Paradox off the wish list. There's so many of these styles of games that I reject for the wish list just out of hand. This one looked slightly better and made it to the second round, but that's as far as it's going to get. Next we have a game called Black the Fall, which came out in 2017. Action adventure platformer puzzler. I don't recall this game, so I'm not sure what's going on here. And the problem with looking at a lot of these games is that you either get stuck watching the trailers that barely show you anything, or you get impatient and click on the screenshots, and half the time the screenshots don't want to load. This looks like a basically run to the right game. I don't hate those styles of games though. It's also a Square Enix published game, which gives it a slight bit of credibility. It means that it was at least slightly better funded, although Square Enix can certainly be a double-edged sword in some cases. Yeah, this looks good. I don't see any reason why I'd take this off, and then you can get the collector's upgrade, or you could get the Square Enix bundle, which somehow includes the Turing test, so I want that game too. So sometimes you'll find bundles make games cheaper because you've already bought the more interesting games, depending on whether the bundle gets cheaper at all if you already own some games. Sometimes on Steam, if you try to buy a bundle and you already own the game, it just says, well, you're not getting any discount and you're not getting a second copy of the game. So do you really want to do this at that point? So you have to be careful what it says in the shopping cart. Here we have a game called Blackwood Crossing. It's rated very positively. There's really no reason why I'd want to take it out. It has a CGI animation style look to it, which makes it slightly interesting. So yeah, it's another standalone, what I would call a AA, if not single A game on my own personal scale. Probably I'd call this a AA. Next we have Blade Strangers from the publisher Nicholas, which is a fighting game. Fighting games are always interesting because I'm not sure if I was to get into fighting games which ones I should play or shouldn't. Blade Strangers is particularly a weird game because it is a collection of fighters from other indie games, including Isaac from The Binding of Isaac, which is the baby character, and several other characters from other indie developers that, frankly, I don't even think were published all by Nicholas. Some of them were, but I'm not sure all of them were. It'll Do is another game I want on my wishlist, but then I guess I could certainly go on a entire rant about just every single game I want on my wishlist. This is rated mostly positive, 72% of 73 reviews. It's basically like a Smash Brothers for indie games developers without really doing the Smash Brothers style of gameplay. 1 second. I'm gonna drink some water. This might be a good time for you to pause the video and take a break too. Sorry about that. Getting the tickle in the back of my throat because I've been talking for so incredibly long. Next we have a game on Steam called Blades of Time, rated very positive from 2012. Again, this is probably what you'd call a AA game, at least by modern standards. It very well may have been a AAA game when it first came out. Some of these hidden gem games that look like they're pretty well animated, but they're a generation or two behind, are potential hidden gems. Probably a lot better than anything that is a retro looking 8-bit game that actually is brand new. We have one called Blake and Mortimer, The Curse of the 30 Denarii, which is an adventure casual game. I think it would get another year. This is a weird looking game from a company that I imagine hasn't done anything that's caught my eye. I'll leave this one though. Like, give it another year, see if anybody actually played it. Now we're gonna get into the BlazBlue games from Arc System Works, which are fighting games with a pretty consistent hero selection group, I think. So it's 2D fighting games. From what I understand, the BlazBlue games are actually rather popular, whereas I would have thought something more like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter might be the popular ones, or Tekken or Dead or Alive. There are definitely some lesser known to people who are not into the crowd as far as fighting games, types of games. So as for which of the BlazBlue games to play, there's a whole collection here, and they're probably relatively expensive. They may also have some storyline in them as you play through the single player experience, which adds something certainly to it. If I can play as a character on easy, go through the story mode, and get a story revealed to me, that gives me a lot more to criticize than walking into a fighting game and not really having the skill to criticize whether the fighting game is reacting well and working well or not. So I mean, I really would be out of my depth trying to criticize a fighting game, but I'll never get any better unless I start playing them. I imagine the characters that they're using are from lesser known animes, if I was to guess. I'm pretty sure I recognize at least one of these girls, maybe from maybe like the Fate Stay Night series, perhaps. Here we have BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. This one is actually 50% mixed in the last 30 days, so something happened on this one.
But I think in general, if I'm gonna buy the BlazBlue games, I'm probably gonna just buy the BlazBlue everything, which might be very expensive when you start looking at like all the DLC and character packs that they probably sell. Let's see. Let's see. This game is far too easy and the only bad game with the name BlazBlue. This is not BlazBlue, this is a game for people who don't play fighting games. Well then I guess this is the perfect game for me to start on. So I wouldn't be surprised if the fighting game community, yeah, at least one of those characters is from Persona too. I wouldn't be surprised if the fighting community is a little bit snobbish too, so apparently Cross-Tag Battle would be the one for me to play. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Bleed 2. You'd think that there would be a game called Bleed 1 first. Let's see. It's a time-slowing, jumping, platforming mechanic. Air dodging, bullet reflecting. Things, bullet hell game. I might be willing to give this one a try because the time slowing mechanic might counteract the bullet hell problem that I have with most games that are bullet hell games, where it's just too much on the screen, moving too fast. Frankly, I'm just getting old and don't want to put up with games that are that hyperactive anymore. It's rated very positively. It came out in 2017. Is there a game called Bleed 1? Yes. So, probably should play both of them. Or at least keep both of them on the wish list. Next we have a game called Blind that came out in 2018. There has been, at this point, too many games on Steam where you play as a character who's blind. There's, I believe, one called Perception. There was the little girl game we saw earlier who was blind. I wouldn't include the little girl game into this category though. I'm just including, I think there have been too many games where you spend 90% of your time unable to see anything on the screen, and you just get these little echolocations. This one actually looks a little bit better than some of the other ones I've seen, so I'll keep this and give it another year, but I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the time I would not want to play it. Unfortunately, as I'm scrolling down, I also see that it requires VR, so that's crazy. I ran into one game that said you could play it with or without VR, but this one seems to be 100% VR. So I'll put this actually on my follow list. It looks like it might be a good game for people with a VR headset, but that is a problem. Built from the ground up for virtual reality. So that, I guess, solves that problem too. If you can't play the game except for VR, and that's what I'm talking about, where VR has become this barrier to entry for a lot of gamers. Is like I can basically play any game I want that's available on Steam, except for the games that are on VR, and that's a problem. Let's see. Next, we have a game called Blitzkeep Unleashed. Looks like a billiards game. I think I may have just recently added this. Yeah, I probably did. It's a weird game because you're basically playing pinball and bouncing around your knight character.
So it's brand new. I wanted to investigate it some more. So no real question there. Leave that for a year. Here we have Blockwick 2, which is just a simple block puzzle game. Sometimes this is depicted as a game where you have to move different sizes of buses and cars to solve a puzzle. I want to play a game like this. Perhaps not this game, although this one is rated very positively. There doesn't seem to be a Blockwick 1, so either that came out on like a website like itch.io, or it never came out. But yeah, this one's probably way too expensive at $7.99, and that probably means I'll never really buy it. But I would like to play a game similar to this idea at some point. Moving on, we have a game called Blood Bowl 2, which has a 69% positive review on its lifetime and a 50% positive in the last 30 days. So people really don't like Blood Bowl 2. I think I had a fan that said they love this game, but they may not. They may have been talking about a different game that was similar to this. Basically, this looks like American football and Warhammer mixed together. I'm not a big fan of either of those things. Well, I guess it's better to say I'm completely ignorant of both of those things, both American football and Warhammer. So this was Metacritic reviewed at 76, which you'd think was a little higher. So what's the problems here? Let's see. Game is alright, but lack of customization kills it for me. The AI single player mode is utterly embarrassment. It's a bit of a clunky interface. For people with the original game, its expansion plan feels absurd. Don't care about this game until the expansion and DLC bundles cost less than buying the full game again. First and biggest problem in this game is the message and stat legibility. The script is too small and a poor choice. No real matchmaking based on skill. Very bad AI. Don't recommend. So it brings about an interesting question: is maybe I should just play, say, Blood Bowl 1 and then ignore that Blood Bowl 2 ever came out. This is from the company that made, well, they made Blood Bowl Death Zone, and that recently came out too, so that they're still trying to move the series forward. And they made the Council, which I don't think they have all the episodes out for that, and Styx, which I played the first Styx games and didn't like it amazingly well. So can we go back and see if Blood Bowl 1 is there? Blood Bowl Chaos Edition is rated mostly positive. For $14.99. Okay, well, I guess I really don't feel like there's a reason to play, particularly in this instance, the second game if it's not well reviewed. But maybe one day I would cover the first game. And then maybe I would just play the third game. So if I'm gonna remove Blood Bowl 2 from the wish list, I'll remove the DLCs from it too. Next we have Blood Omen 2 Legacy of Kain. This one is mixed, but this is part of a series of Legacy of Kain games and Blood Omen games that they're not really in a great list there that I want to get. And
In fact, I own all the Tomb Raider games, so if I was to buy this bundle, it would actually probably be at least $100 cheaper than the $427 to get every single Eidos game that is in this bundle. 121 items. And that's not a terrible bundle if you because what you can do is you can buy, I believe there's a Deus Ex bundle that would give you all the Deus Ex games. I believe there's a Thief bundle that would give you the Thief games. There's a Tomb Raider bundle that will give you all the Tomb Raider games. There might be a Just Cause bundle. There is a lot of DLC. And then Legacy of Kain games. Like, there's a very old niche fan base of the Legacy of Kain series. They really need to do a reboot and bring it back. I think it would work well. Of course, the developers of these games in a lot of times are not given the budget or the time to make what they would like to make or make good games, and instead are required to make things that aren't quite that good. But my point there is that there's about 3 bundles you can buy that then would reduce this 50% off bundle to something much more reasonable. But yeah, even though this is mixed and it's a 2002 game from Square Enix, I still want it. Like, I may, in all honesty, just make a short series in which I spend 30 minutes in all of these games. I never played any of these games because I think they were PS2 games for the most part. But I would like to try it. Let's see. Next we have a game called Bloodlust Shadow Hunter from 2015. It says it's an RPG vampire action in the dungeon crawler. And this one was always a weird one because it's rated very positively, 80% of 256 reviews. But it kind of doesn't... It's kind of weird looking. Like, for a game that's from 2015, you'd think it was a lot better. It should be a lot better looking, but it isn't. But it is in that weirdness zone where this kind of feels like it's a slightly failed AA game that still succeeded and built a niche audience. So yeah, I'll keep that on the wish list. It really is going to come down to the point of really, would I want to play something that's so niche? Next we have Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which is the 8-bit, 16-bit version of the Bloodstained series that's coming out. And this was supposed to come out, and then a month later the 3D version of Bloodstained was supposed to come out, but they delayed the 3D version. Ignoring that, however, Curse of the Moon is incredibly well reviewed. This is almost the exception that breaks the rule as far as games that use the 8-bit aesthetic and make a retro game. If it weren't for the fact that this developer was also making a 3D Bloodstained game and this was just a side project to promote the main project, I would almost certainly have labeled this as a low effort game. This would have never made it to my wish list. It really did take a lot of the mainstream video game reviewers to play this game and say it was really good to convince me. This is a Metroidvania, or in more proper, in this instance, this is just almost a direct clone of Castlevania, I think, from some of the people who actually worked on Castlevania originally. Let's see if this developer, though, do they have the other Bloodstained game? Well, they have Galgun Double Peace and all the massive amount of DLC for that.
published. But yeah, I don't think I would like to play the Galgun series too, but I kind of question whether I'd get away with it on YouTube. Yeah, they don't even have a page, it looks like, for the 3D Bloodstained game, which I think is called Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. So either that's being developed by somebody else, or they just took the Steam page away. Yeah, there's no reason why this would leave though. It's 95% positive over its lifetime. People know what it is and they liked it. Next we have a game called Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King. Very positive, 84%. I bet this is a sort of nod to the Game Boy style of Legend of Zelda games. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Always looking for Nintendo clone games on Steam and PC, because Nintendo games will just never actually come out. So yeah, there's no reason why this would leave my list. If anything, this actually should go to the top of my list, because yeah, anything that looks and plays like a Zelda game, even slightly, is something that would interest me. In all honesty, I don't think I've actually played a Zelda game in a decade and a half, probably, at this point. At least 15 years. Let's see, I probably, excluding maybe for a second playing The Legend of Zelda on an NES Classic, I probably last played like the Nintendo 64 Ocarina of Time Zelda. So that's probably way more than 15 years ago. Alright, well, we're looking at this game. It's called Blue Estate the Game. It's an on-rail shooter. It's not amazingly good quality, but it's alright. This is also probably one of those games that would be a lot better if there was a peripheral that plugged into computers and acted like a zapper or a gun. Magic Leap apparently works with that. So yeah, a light gun like that one would be helpful. I didn't even know that there was a light gun peripheral that looks like that. The only one I've ever seen is a very expensive, like $150 light gun, just for the controller. Yeah, Metacritic gave it a 59. It's not a great game, but it's dumb, stupid fun for an on-rail shooter, and you don't get a ton of those. And clearly, when Metacritic hated it, people who normal Steam users seem to enjoy it just fine. So you have to always balance that out and decide who you're gonna believe. Let's see, next we have a game called Blueprint Ward. It only has 10 reviews, and it looks like it's a puzzle game of spinning around letters. This one's gonna get another year, but then if it doesn't have more reviews by next year, I'll remove it. Next we have Blues and Bullets, which is 64% positive. I kind of wanted to play this game, but the reviews clearly are saying it's not good enough. $4.99, with episode 2 costing another $4.99. Search reviews. The sound and the aesthetics are great, but the gameplay is uninteresting and the writing atrocious. I can't recommend the game from a developer which drops Linux support after the first episode of the game. It started out very promising. The 2 existing episodes are fascinating and visual style overwhelming, but of what use is it when everything you fight for never will will never be resolved. Let's see. The developer stated that they're going through rough times and that the game isn't cancelled. This was July 9th. So the problem here, game is abandoned, no point in buying it, unfinished game. Problem here is the idea of it being abandoned. And I'm kind of wanting to give it more of a chance. But it started in 2015. So it's 2018 now, it's 3 years. If it's abandoned or not, at this point it should just not be on the wish list. If this comes back out of development hell, that'll be very surprising. You can see this developer made a couple other games but hasn't made anything else recently. See, episode 2 came out on March 10th, 2016. This came out on July 22nd, 2015. So you're talking 2 years now with no development. Yeah, this game has to leave the wish list maybe at some point. If it's finished, I would get word of that. But more often than not, you never hear of that happening. Not because it does happen and people don't report it, but simply because it just doesn't happen. People give up, people disappear, people move on to other jobs. Let's see, what do we have here? This looks like a more 3D version of Super Meat Boy, and frankly, any game that looks like Super Meat Boy is probably no good for me. It's just too precise, the movements that are required. This looks like this would be a nightmare to try and play. A lot of button presses and high accuracy. I could see people that like Super Meat Boy and are good at it wanting to play this. It seems like you can also play as a multiplayer race. And I think they've done some interesting thing with what probably are 3D assets from the Unity store, but I would be a little hesitant to call this just a asset flip game because they've done a good job with it. They've integrated it relatively well. The only thing that really stands out is the fact that you're playing as these just bouncy balls. It's 88% positive, so if you for people that could play these kind of games, I think this is fine. This really is just going to come down to a personal thing about games that are just like Super Meat Boy are too difficult. Speaking of super difficult, I want to play Cuphead though, but I wouldn't be surprised if I end up only beating Cuphead on the easy levels, particularly on some of the later ones. I would also argue that Cuphead actually isn't hard in as much as it has been overhyped to be hard. So Bob was hungry. It's getting taken off. Next we have a game called Bohemian King, which is what kind of game? Not a game, it doesn't want to load. Let's see, it's mostly positive, 70%. Year later you find yourself on trial accused of a brutal murder. How far will you go to exonerate yourself? Seems almost like a courtroom drama game where you wander around and maybe manipulate evidence. Interesting. It's an interesting 3D game, considering it looks like it probably would play better as a 2D game. There you have some negative reviews. They call it a disappointing mess.
An indie French murder simulator. Well, less a murder simulator, more of a murderer simulator, as the game begins with you in the dock from a murder you actually definitely committed. That's not what I meant to click on, though. I meant to click on the developer and see if they had made anything else, or this publisher, and see if they had published anything else. It is recognizable to me. Nope, I have not heard of any of these games. They seem to all be kind of generic games. This one will probably never get any more reviews. And because it's mostly positive, I'll keep Bohemian King. Let's see. Next we have Bomb Squad Academy. Should I play this game instead of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes? I think this is more of a real-world electronics simulator. Like, not 100% to show people how to make bombs, of course, but to show some general basic ideas of connectivity, whereas Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes has just a bunch of mini-game puzzles that you have to accomplish. And that's where this attracted me as an interesting idea of a game. It's 82% positive, so there's really no reason why this one would leave. Here we have Bomber Crew, a game recommended to me by a fan. Unfortunately, I've just never had enough money to justify playing it. Also, I think it's sort of more of a multiplayer game than a single player game. Well, I guess it's all single player. It doesn't even have multiplayer. Wow. Felt like it was a multiplayer game. But yeah, it's definitely on the list. I'll put it at the top of the list too, particularly since it's been recommended to me. I'm not 100% sure that anybody cares about it now, a year later, but yeah, there's really no reason why it should leave the wish list. It's still kind of a unique and interesting game. I don't think there's too many games out there where you play as a bomber crew. Next we have Bomber Knots, which is a Bomberman clone of sorts. You get a lot of really bad Bomberman clone games on Steam. This one is 80% positive, and looks like a pretty good one. Oddly, you don't really get a lot of Bomberman games from the people who own the rights to Bomberman. As for this game, Bomber Zone, I'd kind of love for it to be a 3D Bomberman clone that's really good, but it has 9 user reviews. It came out in 2016. We can look at the reviews. Why would you play this when you can play the original for free? Very buggy game, not worth it. This person got it for free and they don't like it. This person got it for free and they don't like it. There's quite a lot of reviews. 65 reviews. Interesting. This is one of those cases where only 9 count because only 9 people actually bought it from Steam and everybody else were either given a key or bought it somewhere else. But yeah, Bomber Zone is not the hidden gem Bomberman clone, and I'm not sure I even want to play one Bomberman clone game on Steam. I'd be willing to think about it. This is a slightly interesting game, Bombshell, because this character, I believe she was supposed to be in a completely different game, and an artist just like sketched this character and then put that sketch away, worked on this different game, and then came back and made this game for 3D Realms publisher. This game isn't great though. It's 61%. This is another one of these AA games that's a failed AA game. I'm not sure how my mind works to call a failed AA game a failed AA game instead of just saying, well, it's obviously a single A game at that point. I think in my own mind the A system is the intent of scale. So how much money did you invest in it and how much polish did you put in it to make it look good? Whereas failure or success, whether the game actually plays well and is liked and sells well, are completely separate issues. So yeah, this is one of those games I'd like to play. I definitely wouldn't want to pay $34 for it though. And I don't think this game even came out that long ago. It looks interesting, certainly. They know how to draw a character to catch your attention and show action to catch your attention. But I imagine the real gameplay is kind of boring. Let's see what the reviews are actually. This is so bad. Such a disappointment. This top-down shooter looked so fun and the game felt so good for the first 20 minutes. I thought I had a game that lived up to expectation. Let's see. Can't aim in this game to save my life. The action feels clunky and weak, that it hurts. This game is cancer. When the first couple of enemies feel like huge bullet sponge, a game has a lot to do. Yeah, so skipping around, there's just a lot of generic, like, gameplay polished decisions in this that clearly aren't done well. And you almost wonder if maybe there could be a mod or a patch that would fix this, or maybe if you just play it on super easy mode, it would work too. There definitely are some games out there that if you just play them on easy, that would give you a much better experience. Let's see. I want to see if what else this developer made. They've made Rad Rogers, which is a different game, definitely. That's quite a drastic difference, but they clearly love characters with guns. And then it's probably not really worth it to click on 3D Realms, because 3D Realms, I imagine, has made a lot of games. Like, I believe it was this game Iron Maiden was supposed to be this character Bombshell. But Iron Maiden came out after that, so maybe 3D Realms, creators of Duke Nukem, 3D Prey, and Max Payne are excited to team up. Maybe Iron Maiden never got off the development track. Shadow Warrior Classic also, that's a recognizable game, but a lot of these are definitely not recognizable games. Alright, well, I guess the only thing I want to double check is make sure that Rad Rogers is on my wish list. I imagine it already is. Let's continue. How far are we from the end of the list? I wonder if we're at Bomb Slinger now. I bet there's several more bomb games. Right, so this is a 2018 game that's 90% positive with 41 user reviews, and it's a top-down Bomberman clone. So there's at least 2 Bomberman clone games on my wish list that are going to stay. Here we have book series Alice in Wonderland. It has only 17 user reviews. It's 88% positive. Again, this is a game that's basically just on my wish list so that I could put Alice in Wonderland in the title on a YouTube video and play the game.
says it's a visual novel, which is weird. Weird to play a visual novel that one hopes and assumes is not age inappropriate. Because if it's an Alice in Wonderland, it should be very kid friendly. It's probably not the greatest game in the world, certainly. And let's see, there's only one other game by this developer. There's actually several Alice in Wonderland style games, so if I probably need to at some point just type in the word Alice and search all the Alice in Wonderland games that are on my wish list and narrow it down to a one or two games. I don't see anything here super offensive, even though it is a low number of reviews that would normally get it removed from the list. Next we have a game called Boar. It seems like it's a platformer, kind of like Limbo. It might have some cloning mechanic in it. Yeah. Where you play as a girl with the ability to multiply herself stranded on Eden, a beautiful but strange world. So it's $4.99. It's rated very positively. I don't see any reason why this would leave. I've forgotten this game though. Like, there definitely are some games every now and then that I see and I'm like, oh, I did not remember that even existing. Next we have a game called Boot Hill Heroes, which is, let's see, is this single player? It says it is. Let's see, a Wild West RPG adventure. I'm not sure I really want to play an RPG adventure, even if it is a Wild West one, and it looks like the animation is not really good. It's 86% positive. That's weird that they would say 86% of 44 user reviews means it's just positive compared to very positive. Or overwhelmingly positive. Steam system seems to be a little weird. The part of the question here would be just how long it would take to play this game. 30 hours for completionist, 13 hours just to play the main story. That's a lot. Certainly. I mean, it seemed okay, but meh. Can't get past the music. There isn't a game here. The screenshots and the video show something more of a what could be feature list rather than what actually is in the game. Has been forever before any actual updates, with no sight of promised game. And that was February 4th, 2017, and that review was made. Well, even if that claim is completely false, I'm still willing to remove this from my wishlist just because it's not visually appealing. And if I am going to play an RPG, particularly a 13-hour plus RPG, I don't think it would be a small niche product that that just doesn't really have any relevancy. Let's see. And since then, there's been a game out called Boot Hill Bounties, which looks like a slightly improved version of the previous game. So they've just taken the exact same game, improved the graphics ever so slightly, and they're selling it again. Which that'll get you in trouble with Steam. So yeah, this is not what I would classify as a trustworthy company. If they take one game and then they just slightly polish it and sell the second time, even if it is a different story and a different experience, it really shouldn't look that close. Next we have a game called Bot Colony. Now this is a weird one because I wanted to keep this on my wish list because it's supposedly supposed to have voice recognition and you talk to the game and that's how you play this adventure game. Unfortunately, this is a 2014 game. It's still in early access. It's 55% positive. This game is not going to ever be finished. And so much has changed since 2014. You could probably build a game like this that's way better looking, that just uses either Amazon or Google's voice to text engine API and do exactly the same thing. There will at some point be a game that is voice controlled and is slightly interesting. There actually have been several attempts at it, but nothing has really successfully worked. Next we have Botanica, or Botanicula, which is a weird kind of adventure point and click puzzle game, but it's reviewed very well, so there's no reason that would come off the wish list. Let's see, we have Bottle Pilgrim. It's a basic adventure walking simulator. Can we see how long it is? Probably get in trouble for copyright infringement on that one. There's no data as far as anybody's played this game. This might be an asset flip game, certainly, but the reviews are kind of high, so I kind of trust it a little bit more, unless this developer has made something else that's really badly made. This is positively reviewed with 24 reviews. This is positively reviewed with 16 reviews. This is 57 mostly positive reviews. This is mixed reviews. It seems like they're kind of doing the same things over and over again, but I think I'm willing to leave this one game, Bottle Pilgrim, on the wish list and maybe give it another year. But yeah, it could easily just be a walking simulator. You have no UI, you have no gameplay mechanics, no enemies being shown. It probably is a walking simulator. Next we have Box It. Let's see, this came out in 2018, so I think this one deserves a year. It's a box sliding puzzle game that on first face of it you would think would have been a one screen Unity game, as I call them. Just a very simplistic puzzle game, but they added instead a 3D environment with 3D man running around basically playing a box pushing game. Depending on the price on this, it's $4.99. If I got it down to $2.50, it would be alright for me to play and try. Generally, we'll see what the reviews say. But there is definitely an argument that games like these are really just puzzle mini games that should be in other things. I'm seeing one negative review on it out of the 2 user reviews, but I'll leave Box It. Next we have Boxes Incorporated, which is 77% positive of 44%. This is a game where I believe you're supposed to process the boxes in a airport or something, shipping facility, and you make money that way. It's a game where you're doing somebody else's job, and generally speaking I don't want to play games where you're doing somebody else's job, but this looks like it might be slightly fun, at least for a 5-minute gag. Probably not $8.99 worth of fun, but
That was the reason why I had it on the wish list. And since it's a newer game, I'll give it some more time to see if other people play it and like it. This would certainly be a weird game and a niche game. Next we have Boxing Fight Super Punch, which is more, I think, of a rhythm game where you have to just punch left and right. There was a game I liked that was like this that I've covered. I cannot remember the name of it. But you can kind of see this as also just a cell phone port from 2017. I guess at this point I have to take it off the wish list. Nobody's played it. It's $1.99. There's one negative review out of that's being shown to me. The other two are not in my language. Although, to be fair, Steam often mislabels things, so something will get labeled as, oh, this isn't in English, but when it totally is. And see, this is from a troll developer. You can tell because of the 3 other basically sex games that they made. So, yep, this one, a troll game, actually did make it to the wish list, or at least a moderately low effort game that has no relevancy. So, moving on. Next we have Braid. I actually played and recorded footage for Braid, and then the music creator or developer kept claiming content ID claims on YouTube, and I think I deleted the whole series. But I don't have Braid on this account of Steam, so this is a game that if somebody wanted to be really generous and gift this game to me, it would help me fill up a hole in my account without making me do any extra work, because I have already determined that I probably would never spend the effort to play this game again and review it. I could give a quick review right now. Braid is a pretty good game. You should play it. I don't think you probably want to get obsessive about it and try to 100% all the secrets. I don't know if you ever actually get any satisfactory answer to any of the secrets. But don't try to stream it on YouTube because they'll copyright it. It's bundled with the creator's next game, The Witness, which I really didn't run into any problems streaming The Witness, so I don't know what happened there. It probably was just music selection, poor choice. Let's see. Yeah. The Witness was developed by a different company completely, so but it might be the same person. I want to say Jonathan Blow, but I'm pretty sure that that's not the name of the developer. Anyways, yeah, so Braid probably will forever be on my wish list as just I only have about 4 or 5 games like that. The Witcher 3 is also a game like that because I got it for free via Good Old Games because I bought a video card to play The Witcher 3. But that means now I don't have The Witcher 3 on Steam. And there might be a couple other games like that. But for the most part, it's not a big issue. Let's see. Next we have Branching Paths is a mosaic of developers, publishers, and people who graduated to indie games. This is a movie. Why do I have a movie on my wish list? I mean, it looks like it's a slightly interesting movie, certainly, to watch some Japanese game developers and see from that perspective. But this is just a movie. I'll put that on my follow list if I ever want to buy a movie on Steam and watch that. Next we have Brave Earth. I think we're getting close to the end, or at least we're probably at the halfway point. Man, if this really is the halfway point, this is going to be long, but I've kind of resolved to these videos all being very long. Brave Earth Prologue is a 2D Metroidvania, it looks like, with a female protagonist, which female protagonist is always overemphasized, as it usually doesn't really affect the game or the story in any way, or just ever so slightly affects the game, which really just goes to point out the idea that if you were able to choose the gender of your character for every game that had ever been made since the beginning of time, every video game, 99.9% of them really wouldn't have changed that much, and it really wouldn't have been that extra work. Let's see. 5 years in the making by the creator of I Want to Be the Guy. Now, I know speedrunners play clones of the game called I Want to Be the Guy, so that might be some relevance here. I guess, though, this is like a new game. It doesn't even have a release date, and it says it was coming out in 2018, so that tells me it should be removed from the wish list. I honestly don't see anything here that inherently tells me that this is also a game that I normally would put on the wish list, so I don't even know how it kind of got there. Yeah, I'm left a little bemused as to why this is even on my wish list. There really aren't enough. There isn't enough time and interest in me to play every single Metroidvania, Castlevania clone. If anything, I want to go and play the old Castlevania games, which we might start running into some old Castlevania games under C, but I imagine we won't actually, because I bet there aren't too many of them on Steam. So now we have Braveland Wizards, which looks like it's a hex grid. It feels a lot like Heroes of Might and Magic, which I played a long time ago. Let's see. Old school turn-based strategy game. RPG adventure. Looks a little bit like it might be a cell phone game, but then it also seems like it has some polish to it. This does look like a sort of polished product. It's rated mostly positive. I guess it has to stay on the wish list, although I'm not sure I'd ever actually decide to buy this game. And they also have Braveland Pirates that's rated very positively, and something just called Braveland, which is rated very positively. So I guess I probably would want to start with Braveland and work my way to Braveland Pirates and Wizardry. The real thing about this game is, if this game takes, oh yes, only 6 hours, that is considerably less time than playing something like Heroes of Might and Magic, which it took potentially 6 hours to play one game of Heroes of Might and Magic. So this might be a good game to use as an analogy to other games. Next we have Brawlhalla, another game that is excluded from the Steam's family sharing service. This is the second game on my wish list that I've seen that points this out. Brawlhalla is working its way to be a true Smash Brothers clone for Steam. It has several indie characters. It's rated right now 75% in the last 30 days, and 83% came out about a year ago. There is a lot of competition here,
Certainly, it's free to play, but I imagine if you want to buy all the characters, you probably have to buy this pack, and if you want to buy the collector's pack for $100, you probably get a bunch of other things. Yeah, this might be the Smash Brothers game to play. There might be a better one. It's published by Ubisoft, which certainly says something. Let's see what the $100 collector's pack actually gives you. It includes 3,500 mammoth coins, the All Legends pack, the collector's Asgardian Elite weapon skins for current and future weapons, collector's Champions of the Brawl skins. Yeah, so it's just a lot of microtransactions. I think that actually has scared me away from playing Brawlhalla. I don't know. I guess I'll leave it alone for now. But it is slightly scary that games have microtransactions in them, and Steam doesn't really have a great point to point that out. There's no icon that says, yes, this has some microtransactions in it, so be aware. And I don't even have a plugin that generally points that out either. There might be like a Steam curators group that might mention that. Moving on, we have a game called Breaking Wheel, which came out in 2017. It has 9 user reviews. Side-scrolling 3D platformer. You control a wheel and have to collect as much as possible. This looks a little bit like an asset flip. Let's see. Yeah, you're playing as a wheel and you're going down a path. Yeah, this looks a little too asset flippy for me. Clearly nobody's played it. $4.99. Just awful clunky controls, terrible optimization, and it just looks like an asset flip. Wow. The mechanics of the game grow tiresome very quickly. The design of most of the levels was well done. Let's see. Half of the negative reviews complain about the fact that it's a negative review, and they're like, I wish I could give this just a neutral review. I wish I could give this something that between a positive and a negative. And I think Steam's whole point is if you're going to give a review, we're going to force you to make a decision. And honestly, if you can't make that decision, then how is your review going to be decisive? Yeah, Breaking Wheel can leave the wish list. It's never going to get any more reviews, and it's never going to get any better for it. Next we have a game called Breathing Fear. What is this? Looks like it's an 8-bit horror game. Generally not the style of animation I like in games, but I guess it just has something else that is catching my eye. It's 82% positive, so I don't see any reason why that would leave the wish list. Alright, and then we get into the Bridge Constructor series. So this would be the 2013 74% positive Bridge Constructor game. I'm considering, it's pretty cheap right now, I'm considering covering the entire series of Bridge Constructor because it was popular on YouTube. Arguably now it's not so popular on YouTube, so it's probably a waste of time to try and cover these games. This would be like 12 hours for completionists for this one game. The next one is Bridge Constructor Medieval. This is from Clockstone and Head Up Games. Let's just double check to make sure these are all from the same developer. I think they will be. So yeah, same Clockstone Head Up Games. And this is another 4 hours for completionists, so that's actually considerably shorter than the previous one. And then you have Bridge Constructor Playground from the same company. You know, you could probably accuse the Bridge Constructor developers of being trolls and just putting the same game out over and over again. No data on how long Bridge Constructor Playground plays, but I would imagine it's approaching 10 hours of gameplay. Unfortunately, I don't think Valve would ever call them trolls, because then they just contracted with them to make Bridge Constructor Portal, which is rated pretty positively. So it's very possible that I would just spotlight those previous games and then play Bridge Constructor Portal because I love Portal so much. Maybe that would happen. And see, this 18 more hours of gameplay there. So there's a lot of Bridge Constructor to go through if I was to go down that route and do a whole series on it, which I might do at some point. Bridge Constructor Stunts also. That's no time on how much you'd play that. And so you probably, if you just buy all the Bridge Constructor games, you'd probably reduce a significant amount of games in this bundle too. There's 35 games and 5 of them I would say are Bridge Constructor games. Let's see. Let's see what is actually in this bundle besides Bridge Constructor games. Doesn't look like anything that looks amazing and interesting. Yeah, a lot of unrecognizable games. Like this one, SEUM. That's a recognizable game because I've seen speedrunners play it, but I don't know if it's really a game worth playing otherwise unless you're a speedrunner. Next we have Brilliant Shadows. Is this a visual novel? I would have thought maybe it was a hidden object game. This is more of a Western animation style too. Anytime I find a visual novel that might be more of a Western animation style, that might be an interesting balancing force to go that route. It also has full audio. Perceptions of the Dead 2. Well, did this game... Oh, the next game is called Pale Spectrum, Part 2 of Book of Grey Magic. And see, this is rated 93% positive of 146 reviews. So this is a really, really highly rated visual novel game. Or at least it's being called a visual novel. Might have a little bit more of a gameplay mechanic, but it doesn't really seem like it does. And so this game, Perceptions of the Dead 2, is also from like, looks like it's a slightly more modified game, more animated game. 100% positive of 13 user reviews. So it kind of seems like they know what they're doing. Yeah. So yeah, that's something to consider, I guess. That I guess those will stay on the tab, on the wish list. Moving on, we have a game called Broken Minds. Let's see, from a developer I've never heard of, and it has 4 user reviews, and it came out in 1992. So why is this game on my wish list? Is it because it looks really weird? Let's see. Story feels like it was written by a recently punished preteen, and this is a revenge on their oppressive parents. Is the one negative review, okay. I think I saw this art style and I thought it was slightly interesting and slightly crazy. It looks like the Gorillas art style, and I guess maybe that also caught my eye. Let's see. But in all honesty, yeah, this probably shouldn't be on the wish list. Not within a million miles of the wish list, honestly. And see, all this trailer seems to be is mostly just what the screenshots are. Yeah. Okay. I'm not seeing anything here. And this developer has made nothing else. So I guess I was hoping this was a hidden gem. It probably isn't, and I'm not willing to risk it, even for $6.99. I'm definitely not willing to risk it at that price. I don't know why the screen goes white now in between each tab. Probably because I'm running out of RAM. We've got a game called Brotherhood Unite. It's a 2D platformer shooter. I'll give it another year, but almost certainly this game is going to get removed. This just does not look like a type of game that would interest me in general. Seems like you might end up in a slightly different place if these screenshots would decide to load. Yeah, you end up in a cave at some point. Next we have Brute et al. This is 75% positive. I'm still a little iffy on whether I'd really play this game because it's a ASCII roguelike game that is then converted into a 3D-esque game. So it uses the ASCII symbols as textures for a 3D roguelike game, which kind of turns it into a 3D dungeon crawler. Doesn't look terrible though. Once the price gets down more, I would be willing to play it. I don't think this developer has made too much otherwise that would interest people. Conga Master? Yeah. Moving on. Bubble Ghost from 2018. Why is this on the wish list? It's an Infogrames game. Infogrames, I believe, is a really old developer. Was this like a Commodore 64 game? It's moving too fast. It has too many angles of articulation. This looks like a really old game, but this clearly is a new game. I mean, even if this was an old game, it still doesn't make a lot of sense. I have no idea why this would be on my wish list. Let's see. Infogrames is not the developer I thought it was. It has no games that interest me. That developer has only made Bubble Ghost. And this publisher has published some older games like Pushover. Yeah, Pushover is a really old game, so maybe Bubble Ghost is a really old game too, but even at that doesn't really affect me much. Like I don't care. Like, it could be an old game or it could be a brand new game. It still looks like a bad game. So we're getting a considerable list of games to remove from the wish list, which is going to make this a considerably easier experience next year. Let's see. Next we have a game called Buck Saturday Morning Cartoon Apocalypse. It's 88% positive of 34 user reviews. I'm not sure I'd actually want to play this game, but I kind of also want to give it another year. So it's still early access. That might affect my decisions sometimes too. Like, maybe. It may affect it in a negative way though. Next we have Bucket Detective, 85% positive. Looks like it's a weird game, but yeah, it's rated positively, so that'll stay on the wish list. Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill Slap and Beans beat 'em up game, 72% positive or 93% positive over the lifetime. Again, this is a highly rated game. I don't see a real reason why I would take it off the wish list, although I'm not sure I'd really want to pay $19 for a game like this. Next we have a game called Buddy. It's a horror adventure based on a little girl's Mary's story nightmare. Will you be able to distinguish the real story from the girl's fantasy? This is 44% positive of 54 reviews, and it came out in 2016. So it's clearly something about this is not good, and I would suspect it's probably the content that's the problem, not the game. So let's look at the reviews and see what they say. Let's see. The art style is very cute and the story seemed interesting, but the game is just lacking in so much. Of course, the controls are never explained. There isn't a menu of settings. How long does this go? Long story short, it's more of a chore getting through this game than a pleasure. When it's not boring, it's frustrating, and although it does have its redeeming qualities, it's not worth the work to get there. Let's see. Man, some of these reviews go on forever. I don't know why people do the good, the bad reviews. Like, who established that as a way of writing? That is not a good way to write. Write chronologically. Like, the beginning of the game is good because of this. The beginning of the game is bad because of this. The middle of the game is good because of this. Let's see. It's artificially extended by long periods of annoying nothingness. Let's see. Not recommended. So yeah, just a lot of people not enjoying the gameplay. I thought it would have been because of the story content, that it would go that it went somewhere really dark, but I guess not. So Buddy gets removed. Oddly, the next game from this developer, which was released only a few months later, I Know a Tale, apparently is rated rather positively. It seems almost like it's the exact same story. It's just one's a hidden object game and one was a platformer puzzler. This one's 75% positive using FMV too, but you don't see a lot of that. So yeah, Buddy's getting removed. Although there have been quite a few tabs that I've opened that are technically games that are going to get added. I think at the end of the day, my wish list is going to end up having at least 100 more games added to it than were taken off. 100 may be too much. Here's a game from 2018 called Bug Splat. This might be just a cell phone game ported to a PC. This might be just a dumb game in general. I thought it was kind of funny looking, just a bug splatting game. It needs another year, of course, to see if people actually play it, so we can go forward. Next we have Bold Boy, which is 90% positive of 261 user reviews. It's a adventure horror point and click dark game. Looks pretty weird. Like another weird horror game. There's quite a lot of them. There's so many horror games on in the video game world that, frankly, if a game is just a zombie game and you're just running around shooting a zombie game, it falls out of the category of being a horror game at that point. And I don't even bother to consider that to play a game like that, specifically in October during Halloween month. I would only play a zombie game if it was incredibly horrific during that month. Otherwise, I'm actually thinking about doing an entire second month of just playing zombie games because they're so common. This is an interesting game called Bullet Witch. I played this on the Xbox 360 and it was total garbage, which is kind of weird now because it's 72% positive on Steam. And this was recently released on Steam as people are trying to release games that were Xbox 360 exclusives in the old day. What this really comes down to is particularly Xseed Games, but I bet Marvelous too, and other Japanese companies, they've lost favor with Sony and they just don't want to put games on consoles alone, and that they've gotten good enough about porting games to PC now that they are willing to put the games on PC, whereas back when this game came out, which was probably 7 years ago or longer, the idea of a game like this coming out on PC was not something that a Japanese person would even, a Japanese publisher would even consider. This is a pretty cheesecake game. You play as a witch with a giant gun, and those are the two things, really. But apparently they worked on it and they published it. It still looks pretty bad, but I would totally love to play this and see how well it's improved. $14.99 though. It's kind of a hard choice. You can see they definitely are patching it. See, this is like 12-hour game. It's not even that long. So this is again a like, this was like the worst game I ever played for a long time, but somehow most people like it on Steam. What else? I was gonna say something else about this game. I don't know. Let's just move on, I suppose. It's not leaving the wish list, certainly. It's not a high priority game, certainly, too. It's one of those probably AA games that failed. Speaking of AA games that failed, Bulletstorm for Full Clip Edition. I own Bulletstorm, but Gearbox, the publisher, or Gearbox Publishing, the publisher of Bulletstorm on Full Clip Edition, decided to not offer any discount whatsoever to anybody who had bought the game previously, or more appropriately to give a free upgrade or to the Full Clip Edition. So Bulletstorm as a game, not incredibly good in the first place. It was alright. It did some interesting things. It was kind of more remarkable for having a terrible Duke Nukem-esque story and having really interesting gameplay mechanics that get used in moderately boring scenarios. Because Gearbox owns Duke Nukem, the Full Clip Edition lets you play as Duke Nukem, which really doesn't change any of the gameplay at all. It's just a skin change, and the rest of it was really just slight patches and upgrades, running at potentially higher frame rates and higher resolutions. So I'd love to own this game, but I really could not, for the life of me, pay $40 for a game that upgrade that I should have gotten for free. This is again one of those games where if it was gifted to me, it probably would save me a little bit of time, because then I could play the full clip edition and not play the original version, and it's really just a gap I want to fill. I'm not even sure you could buy the original version. That is the slight problem of buying games on Steam, is that you might end up owning the wrong version, but it's really just Gearbox being cheap there. People Can Fly really only has 2 games on Steam, Painkiller Black Edition and the Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition. And the Duke Nukem Bulletstorm Tour apparently is DLC now. And then Gearbox Publishing has just gotten into this weird thing of publishing moderately bad games. We Happy Few, Duke Nukem 3D, maybe Duke Nukem 3D is actually good. Homeworld, I didn't even know they published Homeworld. Well, anyways, moving on. I don't want to make this take forever. Okay, I'm pretty sure I put this game on the wish list for the homophobic overtones alone. Burly Men at Sea, a branching folktale adventure game about the misadventures of a trio of large bearded fishermen. I like the artistic style. I do not remember putting this on the wish list though. $9.99, came out in 2016, 74% of 95 reviews. So yeah, this one wouldn't leave the wish list. Now, any racing series is questionable whether I'd actually ever play it. Like, I really don't know what are the relevant racing games and which aren't. Is the Burnout series a relevant series, or is it a completely irrelevant series? Right now, I kind of don't even want to make a decision, so I'll just say it's 76% in the last 30 days, 87% over its lifetime. It's probably fine. Like, you could apparently buy all the EA racing games in one bundle for $60. Racing games are interesting too, because I have to kind of question who they're for. Next we have a game called Butcher, which is rated very positively, 90%. I'm not sure it's the kind of game I want to play though, because it's pixel graphics, platformer, and a shooter. This kind of doesn't look like the kind of game I'd want to play. This looks a little too twin stick shooter, random, a lot of shooting, like just shooting. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here that's looks like my cup of tea. And so this again is one of those subjective ones where it's just like, yeah, this probably is a good game, but it really isn't one that I should try and play. This publisher's apparently not made anything else that's looks interesting either. What does King's Arthur's Gold look like? Nothing. Okay. Well, let's put that on the list of games to remove. So I need to find a better system clearly than just putting it on a in a notepad file, because then I have to spend extra time going back and adjusting my wish list via the notepad file. But I guess that's fine. This only is supposed to happen once a year. Button Frenzy came out in 2016. It has 7 user reviews. I think I'd not be interested in playing this game in the first place because I think it would just drive me crazy and require a lot of button mashing. People seem to like it more than they dislike it. There's only one negative review there. But again, this is just a game that's not for me. So my wish list is becoming more true to my true self, to use the word true too often, or to the self I think I know myself as, and that's the plugin I use, options, and that puts us back here. So Button Frenzy was the last one, really? Well, we have gone through a lot of games. It doesn't feel like it was anywhere as long as going through the A's. And looking at my clock, yeah, it seems like it took us at least 30 minutes less time to go through the B's, which is good. I'm still not really finding any major points where I could speed up the process. It's just going to be a long process, I think, in general. There's just a lot of work, a lot of looking at games and actually thinking about them and considering them. And when you have to make a decision, that's usually where the most amount of time is spent. So, Button Frenzy really was the last one. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to friend or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, all of those links are down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, you can either friend me on Steam and gift me a game, either off my wishlist or just something you'd like to see me cover. I'm sure there's dozens of games that I don't have on my wishlist that I probably should check out. Or you can, if you don't want to choose, you could also send me a gift card via Steam, or you can support me via Patreon. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.